They learned early to read the moods around them. Before their own needs could fully form, they noticed the tension in the room, the silent sighs, the unspoken expectations. They became small adults in the shadow of grown-up struggles, carrying burdens no child should bear. And yet, there was a quiet pride in their competence, a subtle approval in being the responsible one. But beneath that surface lies a more delicate truth. The skills that shielded them, empathy, self-control, perceptiveness, also built invisible walls. They learned to hide fragility, to mute longing, to suppress the chaotic storm of childhood for the sake of others. And as years pass, the weight of that early maturity often lingers, unseen, quietly shaping every relationship, every choice, every moment of self-doubt. This is a journey into that hidden damage and the tender human story beneath it. From the very beginning, some children learn to notice more than what is spoken. They sense tension in the air, the tremor in a voice, the unvoiced sighs of frustration or disappointment. They become attuned to moods like a leaf in a subtle wind, responsive before they even understand what is happening. In households where adults carry invisible weights, where emotions swirl too quickly or too intensely, a child can become a quiet observer, a mirror, and, without realizing it, a caretaker. Being the mature child is rarely a choice, it is an adaptive instinct. When a parent is tired, distracted, or overwhelmed, the child steps in, smoothing ruffled feelings, absorbing blame that was never theirs. They learn to anticipate needs, to moderate behavior, to offer comfort. Meals are served with a smile, homework is completed without complaint, tears are hidden in corners where no one can see. In doing so, they gain a subtle approval, a sense of being needed, of being reliable, and with that approval comes the first taste of self-worth entwined with service to others. Yet beneath the surface of this competence, something quietly erodes. There is a cost to always being the steady one, the responsible one, the one who can hold the fragile hearts of others while their own pulses remain unnoticed. Play is sometimes muted, curiosity restrained. The messy, chaotic impulses of childhood are tempered too early. A part of them learns that showing weakness can invite disappointment or even anger, so they learn to hide it. They learn to hide themselves. And the signs are subtle. A lingering anxiety about making mistakes, a constant internal checklist of what must be done, who must be pleased, a reluctance to ask for help even when the weight grows heavy. The world may see a confident, capable child, a prodigy of empathy and responsibility, but inside there can be quiet fatigue and echoing loneliness. The burden is real, even if it is invisible. Relationships are the first place the weight becomes apparent. The mature child often drifts into caretaker roles with friends or siblings. They notice slights, soothe tempers, mediate disagreements. At school, they may volunteer for responsibility, tutor peers, or take leadership positions. Recognition follows, yet it is recognition for service, not for who they are apart from the tasks they complete. The praise is conditioned, transactional, reinforcing the belief that love and acceptance are tied to usefulness. This early attunement can also create a deep self-awareness, a sharp understanding of human emotion and nuance. But awareness alone does not protect the heart. It can heighten sensitivity to criticism, amplify self-doubt, and embed a sense that the world is precarious, unpredictable, or unsafe. The mature child may appear composed and even cheerful, yet beneath the surface is a constant monitoring system, a mind quietly calculating, anticipating, and bracing for disappointment. Perhaps most poignantly, the mature child experiences a paradox of invisibility and hyper-responsibility. They are seen for their competence, but rarely for their needs. They are praised for handling stress, yet rarely offered the emotional safety to collapse, to cry, to falter. Over time, this pattern can cultivate a persistent internal narrative. I must always manage. I must always be strong. My feelings are secondary. Recognizing the burden is the first step in understanding its subtle imprint. It is in the small moments, the hesitation before asking for help, the quiet fatigue after a day of caretaking, the ache of unmet longing, that the story of the mature child emerges. And it is here, in this recognition, that the journey begins. For the very act of seeing the burden, naming it, and tracing its contours is the gentle start of awareness. The mature child is not simply a role they grew into. They are a person carrying an early weight that continues to shape the ways they connect, choose, and feel. And so, to understand the hidden damage, one must first step quietly into the tender, observant world of a child who learned too early to be adult, to hold others, and in doing so, left their own needs waiting in the shadows. To understand the mature child, one must look to the soil in which they were planted. Childhood is rarely a blank page. It is shaped by the rhythms, tensions, and silences of family life. Some children grow up in homes where love is present, yet fraught with stress, financial strain, illness, parental conflict, or emotional unavailability. Others witness overt chaos or trauma. But even in quieter homes, subtler forms of pressure, the expectation to behave, to succeed, to maintain peace, can seed early maturity. In these environments, the child learns quickly. Their own needs are secondary. Their attention shifts outward, mapping the moods of caregivers, predicting which behaviors will soothe and which will ignite tension. A spilled cup, a forgotten chore, a raised voice. Small moments become tests of skill and vigilance. The child absorbs this responsibility instinctively, often before they can articulate it. There is no conscious choice at first, only the survival instinct of a young heart learning to navigate unpredictability. Psychologists call this parentification. It is the reversal of roles. The child becomes caretaker, the observer, the emotional stabilizer. In some cases, the parent may be loving yet overwhelmed, in others inconsistent or neglectful. Regardless of intention, the child adapts. They learn to anticipate needs, regulate emotions, and provide reassurance. They develop empathy far beyond their years, a finely tuned sensitivity to others' feelings. But this sensitivity carries a shadow. It teaches them that love and approval are contingent upon performance, that their worth is measured by usefulness rather than by being. Family dynamics often compound the burden. Siblings may rely on the mature child for guidance or comfort, reinforcing the pattern. A parent may unconsciously reward competence with praise or attention, further entrenching the association between caregiving and acceptance. Even small gestures, being asked to help set the table or watch your brother, can become markers of identity. I am the responsible one. I am the capable one. I am the one who holds things together. Yet while the child excels in these roles, there is often a quiet undercurrent of unmet longing. The emotional energy expended to meet others' needs leaves little space for self-expression, play, or exploration. Curiosity may be tempered by duty. Spontaneity may feel dangerous. Over time, a subtle, almost invisible map of internal rules forms. Anticipate, adapt, protect, perform. Emotions are often cataloged silently, repressed for the sake of harmony, leaving a young self that is competent, aware, and often invisible. The roots of early responsibility extend beyond the household. Culture, community, and societal expectations can amplify the pressure. Children may receive messages, explicit or implied, that to be good is to behave, to comply, to manage the chaos around them. Emotional labor is rewarded. Vulnerability is minimized. In such landscapes, maturity becomes not just survival, but a shield, a way to navigate the unpredictability of relationships, the inconsistency of adults, and the fragility of trust. These roots explain why the mature child often carries a dual identity, externally capable, internally vigilant. They're skilled at reading people, soothing conflict, and managing expectations. Yet they may struggle to recognize or honor their own desires. The skill that protects them also constrains them, shaping the lens through which they view themselves and the world. It is a paradox of survival and sacrifice. The same early adaptation that allows them to thrive in childhood can later limit intimacy, spontaneity, and self-compassion. Understanding these roots is not about blame. It is about tracing the lineage of coping, noticing how patterns form in response to real needs, and appreciating the remarkable adaptability of the child. It is here that awareness begins, in seeing that what may appear as natural maturity is often the product of circumstance, and that beneath the skill lies a tender, sometimes overlooked self, waiting quietly to be acknowledged. The mature child did not ask for this role, yet in stepping into it, they created the very patterns that would follow them into adulthood. Patterns of responsibility, vigilance, and emotional labor. To see these roots is to begin understanding the quiet architecture of early survival and the hidden weight that accompanies it. The traits of the mature child, the vigilance, the empathy, the quiet self-restraint, are not merely learned behaviors. They are deeply rooted psychological adaptations, shaped by early experiences and internalized expectations. Psychology provides a lens for understanding these patterns, revealing why some children instinctively adopt adult-like coping skills long before their peers. At the center of this pattern is parentification, a concept first explored by family therapists. Parentification occurs when a child takes on roles typically reserved for adults: emotional caretaker, mediator, or even surrogate parent. This is not a conscious choice. It is the child's response to an environment where adults are inconsistent, unavailable, or overwhelmed. The child's nervous system learns that attunement, compliance, and emotional regulation are necessary for safety. Over time, these behaviors solidify into automatic habits, forming the blueprint for adulthood. Attachment theory offers another key insight. Children rely on caregivers to provide stability and comfort. When that stability is inconsistent, children may develop anxious or avoidant attachment patterns. The mature child often becomes hypervigilant, monitoring the emotional climate for signs of potential distress. This attunement fosters empathy and reliability, yet also cultivates an underlying anxiety. The world feels unpredictable, and the self is responsible for maintaining balance. Safety becomes conditional, earned through competence rather than inherent worth. Cognitive and emotional development also intersect with these early adaptations. The mature child often exhibits advanced executive functioning for their age: planning, problem-solving, and self-regulation. These abilities emerge not because of natural precocity alone, but because survival in a tense environment demands them. The brain, in essence, prioritizes skills that protect against emotional harm, sometimes at the expense of spontaneous play, creativity, or emotional expression. Neuroscience provides a further perspective. Chronic exposure to stress in childhood, subtle or overt, can shape the developing brain. Regions responsible for threat detection, emotional regulation, and social perception become highly active, honing the child's ability to anticipate and respond to others' needs. Yet this heightened sensitivity comes with trade-offs. Emotional signals from the self may be muted or deprioritized, leaving the mature child deeply aware of others, but sometimes disconnected from their own feelings. Personality psychology also explains why some children take on this role while others do not. Temperamental traits such as high sensitivity, conscientiousness, and empathy interact with environmental pressures. A sensitive child in a household where adults are stressed or emotionally inconsistent is particularly likely to adopt caretaker behaviors. Over time, these traits become entwined with identity. Being helpful, dependable, and emotionally responsible is not just a behavior, it is who they perceive themselves to be. The mature child's psychology is a paradox. On one hand, their adaptivity, insight, and emotional intelligence are remarkable. They navigate complex social and familial landscapes with skill, often excelling academically and socially. On the other hand, these same adaptations can constrain vulnerability, intimacy, and authentic self-expression. The skills that once protected them can become invisible chains, shaping relationships and self-perception long after childhood ends. Understanding this psychology is not about labeling or pathologizing. It is about recognizing the interplay between early environment, temperament, and developmental necessity. It is about seeing the child's ingenuity and resilience, while also acknowledging the hidden cost of early maturity, a life lived partially in service to others, often at the expense of their own inner needs. In this light, the mature child is both survivor and scholar of human emotion. Their early adaptations are both a shield and a burden, a testament to resilience and a reminder of vulnerability. The psychological lens does not erase the pain, but it illuminates its origins, providing a framework for understanding the depth of what has been carried, often silently, for decades. Beneath the calm exterior of the mature child, a quiet turbulence often stirs. The very skills that allowed them to survive, emotional attunement, self-regulation, foresight, can become sources of inner conflict. They excel at managing others' feelings, yet they struggle to recognize or honor their own. They offer care freely, but hesitate to receive it. And in this tension lies a profound resistance, a subtle, often unspoken struggle between the self that wants freedom and the self that feels duty-bound. This inner conflict often begins in childhood. To act on their own impulses, anger, sadness, desire, can feel dangerous. Expressing need may invite disappointment or even conflict. So the mature child learns restraint, suppressing raw emotions in favor of harmony. Over time, restraint becomes identity. The line between self and responsibility blurs. They question their own validity, asking silently, "Is my need important? Am I allowed to feel without burdening others?" The answer, from years of experience, often feels elusive. Resistance arises as a paradox of competence. Their skills bring praise and acknowledgement, yet these same skills can mask unmet needs and hidden pain. The mature child may reject vulnerability, fearing that showing weakness will lead to rejection. They may resist closeness, anticipating judgment or disappointment. Even in relationships where love is present, old patterns whisper that self-interest is selfish and dependence is dangerous. Their heart longs for care, yet they pull away, guarding a fragile interior with layers of learned self-reliance. This tension can manifest in subtle ways. Anxiety may rise in moments of uncertainty, even when the external world is safe. Perfectionism may emerge as a defense against perceived inadequacy. Emotional numbness may serve as a shield, allowing them to function while concealing vulnerability. Even joy can feel tentative, accompanied by an unspoken question, "Will this last? Am I allowed to feel fully?" The mature child learns to navigate these contradictions quietly, internally negotiating between the desire for authenticity and the habit of self-suppression. Cognitive dissonance compounds the struggle. Intellectually, they may understand that their needs are valid, that they deserve care and rest. Emotionally, old patterns of responsibility and hypervigilance remain deeply ingrained. This creates a constant negotiation within the psyche. The rational mind urges self-compassion, while the conditioned self clings to duty. Decisions, relationships, even moments of leisure are filtered through this lens, often unconsciously. Resistance can take the form of rebellion, though rarely dramatic. Small acts of defiance, a day without obligations, an unplanned choice, a boundary set quietly, may feel revolutionary. Yet even these moments carry a twinge of guilt, a whisper that perhaps they are failing the role they learned to inhabit so early. The mature child struggles to reconcile the desire for autonomy with the identity that formed around responsibility. Ultimately, this inner conflict is not a flaw. It is the echo of adaptation, the lingering resonance of a child who had to grow up too soon. The mature child has learned to carry weight, to anticipate, to manage,
to survive. Yet in adulthood, that very skill can create friction between desire and duty, vulnerability and competence, freedom and fear. Awareness of this tension is the first step toward understanding its subtle influence. To witness it is to see both the courage and the constraint. The mature child is a paradox, resilient yet tender, capable yet cautious, selfless yet craving recognition. Their inner conflict is a quiet, ongoing negotiation between the demands of the world and the unspoken longings of the self. And it is within this space, the tension between past adaptation and present awareness, that the seeds of realization begin to take root.
At some point, often quietly and unexpectedly, awareness emerges. The mature child, now grown, may notice a recurring pattern in relationships, in work, in daily life. They see the same sacrifices repeated, the same silent self-denial. Tasks are managed with ease, crises averted, emotions contained, yet a lingering emptiness remains. It is in these moments, subtle and unremarkable to the outside eye, that realization begins. The coping mechanisms that once protected them may now limit the very life they have built. This turning point is rarely dramatic. It often comes as a whisper rather than a revelation, a pause in conversation, a pang of loneliness despite achievement, or a sudden frustration at their own inability to ask for help can illuminate the pattern. They may see how often they take responsibility for situations beyond their control, or how readily they prioritize others' needs over their own. The clarity can be disorienting. Recognition of a long-standing pattern always carries both relief and grief. Part of the realization is understanding the emotional economy of early maturity. They notice how childhood survival skills, anticipation, care, self-restraint, have become default behaviors. These behaviors, once life-preserving, now shape their interactions, subtly dictating choices, limiting vulnerability, and coloring self-perception. Awareness of this invisible scaffolding often brings a mix of emotions: admiration for their own adaptability, sorrow for the unmet needs, and curiosity about who they might be without these imposed roles. Triggers often catalyze this turning point. A partner who asks, "What do you want?" may stir uncertainty rather than excitement. A friend who seeks mutual support rather than relying solely on their care may feel disorienting. Even small opportunities for spontaneity, an unplanned afternoon, a moment without responsibility, can illuminate how deeply ingrained the patterns are. Realization grows not from external judgment, but from internal noticing. The ability to witness, with gentle curiosity, the habits and tendencies that have shaped decades. Psychologically, this stage can be likened to a moment of cognitive and emotional integration. The mature child begins to see the distinction between adaptation and identity. They recognize that their value is not contingent on responsibility or caregiving, that vulnerability does not equate to failure. The turning point allows them to acknowledge the cost of early maturity, to witness how patterns designed for protection may also constrain authenticity and intimacy. Emotional recognition often unfolds gradually. It can start as awareness of subtle fatigue, emotional tension, or persistent self-doubt. Over time, it develops into insight. I have carried these burdens long enough. I am allowed to let them rest. This awareness does not erase the past, nor does it dissolve the skills honed in childhood. Rather, it creates a space for choice, a space to negotiate between the patterns that served survival and the desires that nourish the self. This turning point is both fragile and profound. It requires patience, reflection, and sometimes solitude. It asks the mature child to witness themselves without judgment, to acknowledge the weight they have carried, and to imagine a life in which that weight is no longer a defining measure of worth. It is a quiet reclamation of self-awareness, the first bridge between coping and conscious living.
between responsibility and presence, between survival and flourishing. And in this space of recognition, the mature child, now adult, can pause. They can meet themselves where they are, without reproach, and see both the resilience and the sacrifice, the protection and the cost. The turning point is not an end point, it is an invitation to observe, to understand, and to begin a gentle shift from carrying burdens alone toward carrying them with awareness and choice.
Healing for the mature child is rarely sudden. It is a slow, deliberate unfolding, like the first soft light of dawn spilling across a long-shadowed room. Awareness has begun, the turning point has been reached, and now the work is gentle, an integration of past adaptations with present understanding. It is a reconciliation between the child who learned too early to be adult and the adult who longs to live fully, without carrying every weight alone. Integration begins with acknowledgement. The mature child must first recognize that the skills they cultivated, responsibility, empathy, vigilance, were essential, not flaws. They are evidence of remarkable resilience and attunement, tools that allowed survival in unpredictable environments. Honoring these strengths does not deny the cost. It situates the child's experience within a framework of understanding, not blame. Compassion toward oneself becomes a quiet anchor, softening the harsh self-criticism that has long accompanied responsibility. Boundaries emerge as a crucial element of healing. For a lifetime, the mature child has navigated the world through anticipation and accommodation. Learning to pause before automatically saying yes, to notice when a situation exceeds capacity, to allow oneself rest without guilt, these small acts are radical forms of self-recognition. Boundaries are not barriers against love, they are the scaffolding that permits authentic connection. By honoring limits, the mature child begins to reclaim the space within which their own feelings, desires, and needs can safely exist. Emotional integration requires attention to the inner child. Memories of overlooked frustration, hidden sadness, and muted play may surface. Healing is not about reliving trauma, but about witnessing it with gentle presence. The adult offers reassurance to the child who once had to hold everyone else, whispering internally, "You did enough. You are allowed to rest. You are enough simply as you are." In this dialogue, the mature child begins to cultivate a relationship with themselves that is tender, accepting, and patient. Relationships, too, transform during this stage. With awareness and boundaries, interactions shift from transactional caregiving toward mutuality. The mature child learns to accept support, to ask for help without guilt, and to allow others into spaces they previously guarded. This is often uncomfortable at first. Patterns of early responsibility are deeply ingrained. Yet each moment of vulnerability strengthens the capacity for authentic intimacy, reinforcing the lesson that love and care need not be contingent on service. Integration is also reflected in daily choices. The adult who once prioritized others' needs over their own can begin small acts of self-nourishment, pauses without obligation, expression without expectation, play without purpose. These moments are deceptively simple yet profoundly transformative. They signal that the mature child's life need not be defined by early adaptations alone, that joy, curiosity, and presence are not luxuries, but rights. Finally, healing involves reframing identity. The mature child can see themselves not just as a caretaker, but as a whole person, resilient, sensitive, capable of empathy and of vulnerability, of responsibility and spontaneity. Integration is not perfection. It is the recognition that past burdens do not diminish worth, that patterns can coexist with freedom, and that the self can carry both strength and tenderness. In this stage, the mature child moves from survival to conscious living. They learn to honor the lessons of early responsibility while gently loosening the grip of roles that no longer serve them. Healing is quiet, persistent, and profound. It is the soft reclamation of inner space, a gentle unfolding of possibility, and a gradual weaving together of all parts of the self, past, present, and emerging. The story of the mature child does not end with healing alone. It lingers quietly in the folds of memory and habit, in the cadence of care, in the subtleties of presence. Early responsibility leaves traces, soft imprints of vigilance, empathy, and resilience woven into the fabric of being. And yet, awareness allows these traces to be honored without dictating the rhythm of life. There is a certain grace in recognizing how far the child has come. The small hands that once smoothed worry and absorbed tension have grown into capable, tender hands, aware of limits, aware of needs. The eyes that watched for silent signs now rest more often, learning to look inward as well as outward. The heart that once carried burdens alone begins to feel lighter, not because the world has changed, but because the self has begun to shift its relationship to what it carries. Reflection offers a gentle paradox. Strength and vulnerability coexist. The mature child, adult now, can marvel at the adaptability that once shielded them, even as they embrace the fragility that once had to be hidden. They can witness the past not as a series of deficits or failures, but as a testament to resilience, courage, and ingenuity. Every moment of care given, every weight borne, speaks to a remarkable capacity to navigate complexity with empathy and grace. Yet the poetry of this journey is found in the quiet spaces, the intervals between responsibility and rest. It is in the pause before answering, the breath taken before stepping in, the subtle awareness that their own life, their own desires are valid. It is in the simple acknowledgement that to be human is to hold both capacity and need, to feel fully, to falter, to love, and to be loved in return. The mature child learns to sit with this paradox, allowing tension to soften into awareness. There is a meditative rhythm to this reflection. One can trace the line from a child who anticipated every sigh, every unspoken worry, to an adult who now observes their own patterns with gentleness. The narrative is neither triumphal nor tragic. It is quietly human. The mature child carries wisdom, but also questions. They carry empathy, but also self-interest. They carry care, but also longing. Recognition of these layers is its own kind of poetry, a delicate acceptance of the full spectrum of experience. Time, too, reshapes perspective. The burden of early maturity loses some of its weight, not through erasure, but through integration. Memories of unspoken labor become part of a broader tapestry. Lessons learned, strengths cultivated, resilience demonstrated, all remain, but no longer define the totality of self. They are threads, not chains, echoes, not prisons. In this way, the mature child, now whole, moves forward with presence, carrying both the echoes of the past and the openness of possibility. And in the quiet of reflection, one sees the enduring truth that the human spirit adapts, survives, and learns, that early responsibility, though sometimes hidden and costly, can teach awareness, empathy, and depth, that vulnerability is not weakness and care is not obligation alone, that the mature child, once shaped by circumstance, now holds the capacity to live fully, tenderly, and consciously. The hidden damage, once shadowed and silent, finds its voice in understanding. The child who became the adult who carried the world in small, careful hands can now recognize, witness, and honor their own life. And in this recognition, there is a quiet freedom, a soft unfolding into self-awareness, compassion, and the gentle art of simply being.